Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Dawood. I've been Muslim for 9 years, and this is my story. So yeah, man, it's been a long way. I grew up in Germany originally, and my parents are from Congo originally. So my origin is in Africa, and I've been in Germany for the last, like, my whole life, basically, And my dad actually, he left Africa before. To Europe and to, it was in the 90s, and there was a lot of trouble, a lot of civil wars in Congo, so this was just prior to that, so he left, and then 6 months later, me and my mom, we came after, and it was crazy. Like, back then, it wasn't like the situation we have nowadays where you can jump on a boat and then cross the Mediterranean Sea. Like, it had to go through countries. So we went to Angola, stayed there for a while, and then, my dad sent money, and then we went to Russia, actually. So you had to touch base with different countries before you actually reach the country you wanted to be. So I spent some time in Russia, I spent some time in Angola, and picked up the languages over there, so speaking Russian, my mom tells me. And then, yeah, we got to Germany, and that's my earliest memory is in Germany. So I can't remember anything before that, and it's really weird. I was the only child, and my dad was a really hardworking guy, and he tried his best. And then, I started going to kindergarten and stuff. Actually, the way I got into kindergarten was because, or you guys would say nursery. The way I got into nursery was because my mom was telling me the other day when I was talking to her, she said that there was this boy, a neighbor, he was white, right? And I liked to play with him a lot, and he wanted to play. Yeah, naturally, kids play, right? They don't see differences. But what happened was that I was so keen playing with him every day, to the point, and this is early 90s, man, like in Germany, so that the parents actually told him not to play with me anymore. They refused, and they said, and he wouldn't come out anymore, and I was really upset about that. So, my parents, they were quite familiar with, like, the Christian community, like the Catholic community there. And they actually got me into nursery, and then at the early age, I started speaking, German really fluently. And I would say these are my first 5 years being on the earth. So what happened after was I got into a primary school, and it's crazy. Just every now and then I have flashbacks of what happened there. The way in Germany is like you don't get to primary school just yet if you have a background. So I had to go to this, like, preschool for a year, and naturally I would have people from all over the place: Iraq and Kurdistan, Turkey, Albania. And it's so funny, like, the people that I was in class with were the people that lived in the area I was in. So I was always, with, like, multicultural. It was really multicultural, and I had a lot of people from different cultures and countries. So I got familiar with these type of dynamics really early on. And then, primary school really was for me, it was strange because I wasn't really I was good. I was good in school, but I wasn't at the same time. My interest wasn't really there. I was more of a joker, and but I had potential, right? And the way it is in Germany, it's like the school gives you a recommendation because when after primary school, it used to be like this. It changed, of course, but after primary school, the primary school would give you a recommendation based upon what level you are. You would go to a specific school that would cater for your needs. So, and you would have something called Hauptschule. That's like it's high school, it's equivalent to high school. Or you would go to like Realschule or Gymnasium, which is like grammar schools. Both of these schools are like grammar schools. And based upon the recommendation, you would then follow that path. But your parents don't have to send you there. Well, my parents, in my case, unfortunately, they did send me to the like school for less achieving people. I don't know if that's correct, but that's how I would explain it. So yeah, I went to the Hauptschule, and that just really, if I think about it now, it just shows you the mindset that my parents had as well. And it's quite difficult, as Africans to leave, because it always sounds like, wow, they left the country, they want to come here, they want to stay here, and they want to take our jobs away. But the sacrifice that actually takes for parents to do such a thing, it's enormous. And that's why I can resonate with the Syrians who are coming here now, and other people are coming and leaving everything they know behind to live. So it's a big decision, and that decision is going to have an imprint upon your lifestyle and your life in your children, and it definitely had it with me. And I come from a really like sort of a religious background. My mom, she was given Dawood, actually, the Christian way, when she was 17 in Africa back home, and she was involved with the scriptures. My dad was a Roman Catholic, his mom, and so it was weird. 'Cause I came to Germany, like when we came to Germany, what would happen back then is that you would have Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were somehow miraculously always the ones who would go to the to the immigrants and would spend time with them, being friendly, and just the mannerism. Wallahi, I've never seen anything like that. Really good mannerism. They would come to your house and take you out to these this watchtower assemblies. They would do things like that, and it was really powerful in the sense that my engagement with the Jehovah's Witnesses through my mom, and my dad's side being Catholic, which I will come to as well in a bit, but just my engagement I had with Jehovah's Witnesses was actually, if I think about it today, it was a build-up for me to be familiar with the scriptures, right? Because we would have Saturday classes, not Sunday classes, and there was this yellow book, like big yellow book, and they would have like the stories of the prophets in there, and like biblical figures, and we go through them, right? And I love these people. Like I was in love with Ibrahim alayhi salam. I was in love with Isa, of course, but many other prophets like Nuh and Yusuf. Although they don't really see them as prophets, Yusuf, but I remember them as prophets, or as man of God, a man with missions. And it's crazy, that book had like illustrations of them. Of course, we know then we shouldn't have any images of any prophet, but back then it really helped me to visualize these individuals. And it was amazing, man, like that I got to know these stories before I went to school. So when I went to school, and they would tell me that that happened later in secondary school. I remember really vividly when my biology teacher was telling me that we stem from apes. I said, and I remember saying this to her. I was like, well, maybe your, you know, ancestors did, but not mine. Especially as a black kid, like you reject that because that's something that people throw at you. They say, "Oh, you look like a monkey," etc. Blah blah blah. But for me, it was like a double statement. Like first of all, from a religious point of view, I don't believe that. I reject that. And then from a racial point of view, never have my ancestors were apes. So, but that was built within me. That belief was built within me from when I was young, and it was logical. It was totally logical to me to believe that there were men who believed in God that came. So I got familiarized with that through Jehovah's Witnesses. I got baptized as well, the Catholic way. I don't know if it's called baptism, but yeah, Holy Communion, that's the one. So at the same time, it was more of a traditional thing for my dad to do that because it happened to him. And if you know the story of the Democratic Republic of Congo and how Christianity came there, it's more of a tradition. So yeah, that was the build-up that I had, like my background and the tradition I was raised in. But you know, again, I'm really fortunate that I had this exposure to this rich culture of different, you know, different ideas and concepts. Another thing that really played a huge role besides my background was me being involved in, when I was young. I mean, I have a cousin. He introduced me to hip hop. Like I always, you know, every now and then I would hear my dad and my uncle listen to it. But I think that had such a big influence on me as well. Hip hop, just the music, the culture, and everything that it encompasses. Like the way, I think I was 11 or 10 when I really, you know, I listened to Dr. Dre, Chronics. I listened to Snoop Dogg, Outkast. I don't know if you guys still remember these artists, but I was introduced to that and I fell in love with it. And that had, like, it influenced me for another, like, next 10 years. That was my part of my identity, being a black boy in Germany, you know, we a minority there, like really. And that was, I took that identity. So, you know, I got into like how it goes with hip hop, you know, the 4 fundamentals. I started listening to hip hop, then I got into breakdance. I was breakdancing a lot. I was involved in graffiti for a short period. And it was incredible at that time. That was what, you know, gave me, it was filling the void that I had as a human, you know, the music. And that's why I understand why people struggle with it. You know, I used to dance to music, you know, I used to enjoy it. And what naturally happens is that you follow that path and want to do music yourself. So secondary school was really all about that. It was about, you know, making a name for myself. I would, you know, be known. But for example, I remember, this is crazy, man. I was about 13 or 14, man. And that's the first time I actually entered clubs, like grown-up clubs, not like kiddie clubs. You know, I would go to these clubs, 14-year-old, and literally, I would be on the dance floor and do what I do best. Like people knew me for that. So my oldest, you know, when I would go there, the oldest would be like literally like, oh, go do this step. We're gonna pay you this. We're gonna give you a drink in it. Like, so I was known for it. So besides this whole music and dancing and b-boy culture, it's incredible. You know, it immersed because also at the same time, my dad, when I was young, he would put us into like karate and stuff like that. So I actually started playing football when I was 12, and I was playing it like religiously as well at the same time. Besides doing all that stuff, you know, I was playing football a lot, man. Every day, like people would, like, again, actually this whole dancing and music thing came a bit later, but before that I was playing a lot of football and people would see me with boots and that's it. And I was obsessed, man. I would sit on the toilet and then just read the names of every football player that plays in the European League. And then I I went for like, what's it called? Scouts, like scouts came about, and I was playing actually at a really high level. And yes, my inspiration was to be a football player, like every other child wanted to be a football player. But I took it a bit serious. I was playing, but it didn't work out for me, it didn't work out for me. And that's when the other side, became strong again, like me and music and, and rapping. And then, at that time as well, what was happening with like hip hop in Germany was getting its own face. So we would have rappers from our country. We would have like gangster rappers. So it became a thing, because you knew people who were doing things. So you would like to take that identity. But because I was funky, at the same time, we would be doing this whole street thing, but, in our version of it. So at this point now, I'm only 16 years old, okay? So I've seen all that. I've been to parties, culture, all these streams at me, like had these streams of inspiration at me. And in Germany, like, that's a big, like, Turkish community, and then a lot of Muslims as well. And from the beginning of me being there, I was always in touch with that. I would see people. I remember when I was 14, there was this guy, his name was Fatih. He was Algerian. And I remember clearly, man, I was talking to him, and it was Ramadan. And we were 14, like, we're young in it, like. And he says to me, "Oh, I'm fasting today, I can't eat." And I was like, I looked at him, I was with admiration, and I was like, "Rah, are you fasting? Like, how do you do that?" I wasn't really interested in it, but I admired it. It was major for me, a 14-year-old who refuses to, drink in summer, and it was hot back then as well. So it was incredible. So that was not the first time, but these were the first things that I conceptualized. And I remember when I had a conversation with another guy, his name was Cengiz. I was 12. We were talking about like prophets, and he was talking from a Muslim perspective, and I was talking from a like Christian perspective. And then at the end, I remember saying this to him. I was like, "Bro, all prophets are the same, man." Like, that was the first time I ever realized that, wow, this religion is the same. There is much difference. So fast forward, when I was 16, so I've already told you, got into stuff, drug. Actually, what we used to do was really popular as well at that time was you go to like metal, like scrap courts, and you like steal metal. That's what people do. They used to do a lot. And also was quite dangerous because, they would have like these electric fences and dogs and stuff like that. And we would do this stuff, man, just for the money, And I just got to a point where one of my friends, this is another Fatih, a Turkish guy I was with, and we used to play football and dance and all that stuff. And I remember every single time I would go to his house, his mom would be so nice, man. She would like offer food and like be really kind to me, and she was wearing hijab. So that had an impact on me, definitely. Because I knew this from back home. My mom is quite sweet. All my friends know her as well. But that I was getting it from her, and she was really sweet. And I remember that when they were fasting, she would invite me to eat as well, And I liked this whole thing, this like, you fasted. I got into it. I was like, yeah. And one day, and this was the day when I really took my shot, it was crazy, bro. So what happened that day was that I was 16, and it was I think 2007, right? And every year in the town that I was in Germany, in summer, you would have this like, the whole city, that would be like a festival, like in a city center. And obviously all young people would be there, and it was really a place of madness. People drink, fights left, right, center, drugs, and all sorts of things. So me and Fatih walking around that day, we went to a kebab shop, right? And I had this, the beats, the praying beats, I had that with me, the tasbih, around my neck. Not a Muslim, I just liked the way he looked. So, me walking to the kebab shop, with that thing. And then the guy, I knew the guy obviously, and then he looks at me and goes like, really surprised, but I saw like that love in his eyes. He looks at me, he looks at, you Muslim? And wallahi, to this very day, I don't know why I said I am. I wasn't a Muslim at that time. I said, yes, I am. And he was like, oh, mashallah, and blah, 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 making dua for me. And, it really touched me. And I was like, rah, this is warm, innit? I've never had that feeling before, ever. So we walked away from the kebab shop. We walk into the park. Fatih looks at me and says like, so why don't you become a Muslim then? And I look at me and I'm like, what do I have to do to become a Muslim? He says, just say the Shahada. And then I did say the Shahada. That feeling after, it was just too powerful, man. Like, I remember that I was with another brother of mine, who's from Congo as well. And he looked at me like crazy. What is he doing? Like, but at that moment, I forgot everything that was around me. And wallahi, it's like almost I was pushed into it. Like, the fact that I lied before and said that I was Muslim when I was a Muslim when I wasn't, I still don't understand why would someone do that, So, I mean, it was really weird, for an individual like me just to accept Islam like that, without knowing anything. I didn't know the basics of Islam, the principles and, of the Shahada or anything besides the translation that he gave me. And then obviously when I took my Shahada, a few days later, it spread it spread in the city. And there was one brother, mashallah, and to this very day, I see him as a mentor. He came to me and he explained to me Islam, and he gave me the missing part of why I did what I did, right? So he explained to me the essence of Islam and what Islam was. And I remember he came to my house, he was in a car, and he asked me to come down. So I came down in the car, and then he started talking to me. And wallah, I remember I was shivering. I was like, raw, well, this is what I've signed up to. Wallah, it was overwhelming for me. So then it really, and that's like me in Islam from the very beginning, like that quest for knowledge, like knowing things and understanding things, why and how. He was the person, because he was somebody who would read a lot. So he would tell me stuff. And it was overwhelming, man. To this very day, wallah, that was the one decision I've made in my life that was random, but wallah, it has benefited me so much to this very day. That's why I'm talking to you guys right now. It changed me. It changed me as a human, like my fundamentals, how I saw the world. Now everything I would do, I would always want to know what does Islam say about this, right? So it would encourage me to pray, to have like routines like praying and fasting 5 times a day, praying 5 times a day, waking up in the morning, going to Fajr. I remember my first Ramadan, we spent the whole night in the masjid. Then at 5 o'clock, he dropped me at home. I went to sleep, and I went to sleep with peace, right? My evaluation, the relationship that I have with my mother, and it made it much stronger, right? Because I understood now, that's my mother, and that's what Islam says about your mother, right? My relationship around people around me, okay? Wallah, I'm telling you, like, what Islam has done for me, and if I've reminisces about this, when I think about this, what has happened since then, it's incredible. I remember last year my dad came to come and see me and my family, and that's what he said to me. That's the only thing I will always remember. He says, you know what, Islam has changed you. That's what he said to me, and he's not a Muslim. He said, Islam has changed you, and that's what it is. That's what this religion is. When you embrace it, when you take it, it changes what is within your heart. And what is within your heart is going to be manifested in your actions. And that's exactly what happened with me. My advice really for people who are looking into Islam, or for people who are Muslims, or anyone who's interested, in searching for something that will fulfill you, I would say, man, if you really want to be human again, understanding the purpose of your being, understanding yourself, be open-hearted and be sincere with it. You like when I took the Shahada, when I accepted Islam, that feeling that I had in myself was the feeling of, it was the feeling that was, how can I say this? It was, at that moment, it was just for the moment, right? It's how I felt, right? And that's what it is with us humans. Like, we know that there is something there and it is missing. We're trying to fill it with stuff, but it's not being, that hole is not being filled. And that's exactly what Islam will do for you, but only if you're sincere about it and if you really are looking for the truth. So my advice, again, to stress it, is to be open-minded, especially in the times that we live in, right? Because I don't want to get into the politics of what is happening and how Muslims are being portrayed. That could be another video. But what I want to say is that don't look for mistakes. Don't look for the devil. It's a saying to say. When you're in a situation where it's been presented to you, don't look for mistakes in it, right? Don't look for mistakes in it. Be true to yourself and listen to the message, and listen to what has been said to you, or listen to what you see with your own eyes, and forget the surroundings for a second, forget the context for a second, and just listen to the message. And that's one thing I would say. Another thing for the Muslims who are watching this, look, this is not just another Rivet story, how Rivet came to Islam, etc. Oh, mashallah, may Allah give you Jannah. Of course, I would love to see this in the comment section, or people making dua for me. But this is really for us to understand that we should take anything for granted, okay? I was the person who was about to fall in hellfire. If that day I never, accepted Islam and had, that conversation after with that brother, if Allah had never facilitated that moment, it was a second. If Allah had never facilitated that moment to be, I would be among those who would fall into hellfire. Okay, so we shouldn't take this for granted. If it takes a second for a person to take a Shahada, become a Muslim, it could also take a second for you to switch sides. So for the Muslims who are watching this, take heed of that. There are plenty of people who experience more extreme things than me, and are still on that side, right? And we should be really grateful for what we have, because Islam is a thing that changes people for the good. And I've seen it with my own life. I've seen it with my surroundings, man. And yeah, man, thank you very much. Barakallahu feekum for Roadside to Salam, for having me and to sharing this story. If I said anything bad, it's for me and from Shaitan. Everything, any khair is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.